Hey, welcome back. Today's session, we're going to look at a nice and an exciting destination. Have you ever thought of actually working in Qatar as an international school teacher? Find out what exactly do you need for you to go there and what kind of opportunities are you going to get once in Qatar. Let me grab a cup of tea. Be right back in a few minutes. Why is it that teachers are moving to Qatar? It's an exciting destination for teachers, and for many reasons we're going to look at today. So let's assume now you've said, okay, hey, I want to think about whether I qualify to go to Qatar. What do I need? You need to have a minimum of a bachelor's degree, and a bachelor's degree in teaching. Most countries will have it for 4 years. Other countries will have it for 3 years, and then someone will do something like a postgraduate certificate course in education, and that still qualifies you to work there. Number two, you need experience, definitely. I mean, looking at some of these schools, private schools or independent schools, they pay a lot of money. So they want someone who's really ready for teaching and very experienced in the areas that they're coming for. If it's mathematics, you should be really good at math. So they look at least at an average of let's say at least 2 years. 2 years in teaching, more would give you a bit even an advantage because most people want to go there. And then the basics here, we look at things like criminal record. They will definitely check to see whether you, from where you're coming from, do you have any criminal record? Is the record okay? They will also check to see whether your medical is okay. So they'll do a medical check once you arrive in Qatar. They will definitely check your documentation to ensure that everything is okay in terms of immigration, from where you're coming from, and of course from Qatar itself. They'll give you a contract, and the contracts are long-term contracts between 1 year and 3 years, of course renewable after that period of time. You want to go to Qatar. What kind of opportunities are you looking for? Number one, international schools. Your primary focus should be international schools because international schools pay a higher salary than if you're looking for any other school. So it makes a lot of sense if you're traveling from your country to Qatar to earn a bit more. Otherwise, to some degree, again, it doesn't make sense. And then if you're not looking at international schools, you're probably going to be looking at things like language centers or tutoring. What kind of schedules are you looking at? Now, the most interesting thing about Middle East schools or countries, because it's pretty hot during the afternoon, learning usually starts a bit early. That means by 7 a.m. you're probably in class. Now, the beauty about it is by about 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock, school is over because it's too hot for students to focus. So they need to be in a different environment. So school ends at 2 p.m. in most of the schools. In some schools, you probably find they will end at 1 o'clock. And then if there's any kind of activities that they do after sports, a bit of sports, you have something like, let's say they're doing clubs, then they'll have a chance to do that at that point. Looking also at the kind of holidays then you need to think about in terms of your work. They allow you to celebrate the usual international holidays, Christmas, Easter holidays. They will then recognize that, and everybody probably is at home and no school for that time. They also have their celebrations or their season of the Ramadan, the month of Ramadan. So you may have either school not being in full session as they go through the month. In terms of your teaching times and the kind of breaks you're going to get, you need to be planning with September as the beginning of the academic year, and then to end in June. And they usually have 3 terms, just like any international school. Let me say British international school. They usually have 3 terms. You have a break in between the terms. You then have a long summer holiday between June and September. This is the time most teachers take to maybe travel back home for the holidays. and then they're back for the start of the next academic year. That's in September. Yeah, so that's how much money do you think you're going to earn when you go to Qatar? Now, interesting, people have always thought that going to Saudi Arabia would give you a better salary, but it's out of just comparisons, it appears Qatar has a better remuneration in terms of salaries. Averagely, you could say they pay between, let's say, $2,000, $2,500 to about, let's say, $4,300. That's in terms of your salary, tax-free. So you can imagine the implication there, that it's tax-free. What kind of packages are we looking at when it comes to teaching in international school in Qatar? Now, within that package, of course, you have your salary, and the salary also comes along with accommodation. In some schools, they'll give you accommodation. In some schools, they will give you an allowance to cover for your accommodation. So in some schools, it's in between. Some will give you a house, some will subsidize for your housing, some will expect you to get a house somewhere, off-site. But in most cases, because of international teachers, finding it easier to live within the school, so you probably have a house on-site. The other thing that you get is definitely health insurance. Now, if you're talking about a good international school, a reputable international school, they'll give you, of course, your salary, they'll provide for you accommodation, and then an air ticket back home every year, and health insurance. So that's when you really, you're focusing on getting into a good international school. So what kind of salaries are we talking about here? There's a range, let's say, between $2,300 to about $4,200 for an international school teacher. And this, again, varies depending on the kind of responsibilities that you have. Maybe you have a certain position that you've been given, head of department, subject leader, and those kind of things. So that can actually push up your salary. And then when you look at how much you get, and you're sort of right now thinking, I'll get all that, but how much is the cost of living? So according to some research, comparisons of estimates between Middle Eastern countries, it would appear that Qatar is not really the most expensive. In fact, it's cheaper than if you went to live in Saudi Arabia, right? Or let's even say you're living in Dubai, United Arab Emirates. Qatar is ranked lower, so you have, you're able to keep a bit more. You're earning more than if you're in Saudi Arabia, and at the same time, or in Dubai, and at the same time, you're spending less because the cost of living there is lower than any other Middle Eastern country. So what kind of students are we looking at here? They are not necessarily citizens of Qatar, 100%. Why? Because Qatar brings together a lot of the companies from all over the world. Therefore, it's a hub with all manner of expatriates coming from all sorts of industries and all sorts of countries. So you'll have a mix of students in your class, others coming from, China, Saudi Arabia, Australia, the US. So you have a mix of students who come in with, with different backgrounds and cultural, preferences. So that's the kind of students we'll be looking at in Qatar. Qatar follows it's an Islamic country. It's a conservative Islamic country. So there are certain things that everybody's trying to adjust to, not just you, but also the students. One of the things for you that you need to think about, alcohol. So if you're this kind of guy who likes alcohol and drinking, alcohol is not permitted. In fact, drinking of alcohol in public is a serious offense. So you are a bit restricted there. They allow you, but you need to get a permit to do that. The next thing is dress code. They don't allow revealing or provocative attire. Remember, this is a conservative Islamic country, so everybody needs to be well covered up and be very modest in how they are covered. Now remember, they are very serious about some of these things, so when they say it's an offense, they are actually serious it's an offense. You can have yourself deported back. You can have yourself in a lot of trouble with the law when you break some of these rules. Yeah, and that's it for Qatar. We'll see you next time. We'll be looking at the next country that you can work as an international school teacher.